Emperor Domitian is remembered as a tyrant, and that his years on the imperial throne of Rome was a reign of terror, and that his death brought about the restoration of liberty and the glorious rule of the 5 good emperors. However, what is often less talked about is the fact that he was an able administrator, and the empire prospered during his reign. Domitian was the 3rd and last emperor of the Flavian dynasty in Rome. Domitian was born in 51 in Rome. He spent most of his early life with his uncle Sabinus, while his father Vespasian and his brother Titus were abroad in various services to the Roman Empire. He was 12 years younger than Titus, and he spent most of his youth in the shadow of his big brother. And Domitian never got a court education like his brother, which might have contributed to his later problems with dealing with the Senate in an effective way. But he did receive a sound education in Rome, fitting for his senatorial rank. Domitian's life, like those of many Romans, took a dramatic turn with the suicide of Emperor Nero in 68. Although little is known about Domitian during the turbulent year of the 4 emperors, it seems that he continued to live in Rome, even after his father declared his intention of grabbing power for himself from Emperor Vitellius. When the Vitellian forces had been crushed at the Second Battle of Bedriacum by the Flavian forces led by Primus, they were now marching on Rome. Domitian and his uncle Sabinus, who was city prefect at the time, had to flee the Capitol Hill to avoid Vitellius' soldiers. They tried to negotiate Vitellius' abdication from the throne, and Vitellius realized his days on the throne were numbered. The Danube legions were only days away from Rome, and the Syrian legions were closing quickly. So Vitellius agreed to step down. But his soldiers did not accept his abdication, and they ran rampant in the city. Sabinus was killed in the fighting, but when the Flavian forces led by Primus entered Rome, Vitellius was dragged from his hiding spot, tortured and killed. But the Syrian forces led by Licinius Mucianus soon arrived and set about restoring order in Rome. And Domitian presented himself to the troops, and they hailed him as Caesar, and he moved into the imperial residence. And Domitian, together with Lucius Mucianus, who was one of his father's chief advisors, represented Vespasian in the Senate before his father had a chance to arrive from the east. It was very clear that Vespasian was grooming Titus to become his successor. He was given more and more responsibilities and power, while Domitian only held various priesthoods and held the lesser prestigious suffect consulship. Titus was consul no less than 7 times during his father's reign, while Domitian was suffect consul only 6 times. And very little changed during Titus' short reign. Domitian had very little practical experience and was not prepared to rule the empire. When Titus lay dying from an apparent fever, Domitian eagerly hastened to Rome to have himself declared emperor by the Praetorian Guard, even before Titus had passed. The Senate, however, acted a bit slower, deciding to honor Titus before proclaiming Domitian emperor, which might have caused some enmity in Domitian towards the Senate. He was eventually proclaimed Emperor of Rome by the Senate as well. Domitian's reign certainly began with as much promise as that of his father and brother. He proved to be an excellent manager of the imperial government, and took a hands-on approach of running the state. He became personally involved in all branches of the administration, and he issued edicts about governing the smallest detail of everyday life. He established an office of curator to investigate financial mismanagement in the provinces. However, the republican facade in Rome had been maintained ever since Augustus. Domitian, however, was contemptuous of the Senate, and therefore earned their enmity. Our ancient sources are primarily from the senatorial class, so he is often described as a bloodthirsty tyrant. While some of that disdain is unwarranted, Domitian did consolidate political power in Rome to the imperial court alone. The Senate, which already had a marginal role in government, was left without any influence. And Domitian come to style himself as a lord and god instead of the modest princeps, the first citizen. Domitian's court consisted of freedmen, equestrians, and some notable senators like Nerva and Trajan. During Titus' reign, a fire had damaged large parts of the city, which left Rome with plenty of opportunities for improvement. Domitian implemented a very ambitious building program that restored and completed some 50 structures in Rome. Some of the most notable of these works are the restored Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus of the capital, a new palace on the Palatine Hill, and a new forum in the center. The forum would later be named after Domitian's successor, Forum of Nerva. All of the restored buildings bore Domitian's name alone, and the original builder's name was removed. He built more than any other emperor before him, save for perhaps Augustus. That, along with the frequent and elaborate public games he held, made him very popular with the general public in Rome. While Domitian's father and brother's military ability is beyond dispute, Domitian struggled, but he was desperate to win military glory. Early on in his reign, Domitian went to Gaul, pretending to make a census, but he suddenly turned on the Chatti tribe in spring of 83, and by the end of that year, he celebrated a triumph in Rome. However, this is illusory. The war was not to be concluded for some time, and Domitian's efforts largely consisted of building roads and fortifications. That didn't stop Domitian from claiming the title Germanicus for his achievement. And Tacitus wrote this about Domitian. Domitian knew in his heart that this recent counterfeit triumph over the Germans made him a laughingstock. Meanwhile, the Roman commander Agricola had penetrated far into Scotland, conquering everything but the highlands. Perhaps jealous of Agricola's success, Domitian ordered him to retreat back further south, and troops were ordered to move from Britain to secure the Danube frontier, which was facing massive threat from the Isiges, Roxolani, Macromani and the Quadi tribes, as well as the Dacians. While Agricola was offered triumphal rewards, his relegation into obscurity and the lack of further posts fueled speculation that Domitian was either jealous or mistrustful of Agricola. Agricola's son-in-law was the historian Tacitus, so it's important to note that some of the hostility from Tacitus toward Domitian can perhaps be accredited to Domitian's treatment of Agricola. At the end of 85, the Dacian king ordered his troops to cross the Danube and attack the Roman province of Moesia. And then it seems that the Roman governor was caught by surprise. He, together with the legion, was destroyed in the attack. Domitian personally hurried to the province to shore up the situation and remove any invader. When order once again had been restored in the province, Domitian left the Praetorian prefect Cornelius Fuscus in command of the situation, while Domitian went back to Rome to celebrate another premature triumph. In 86, Fuscus took 6 legions and marched into Dacia and forced them back. However, this was just a ruse. At Tappei, the legions were ambushed. Fuscus was killed in the battle, and at least one legionary standard was lost to the enemy, and the remainder of the Roman army had to limp back to Roman territory. By virtue of this great victory, of the Romans, Decebalus was named King of all Dacia. Domitian understood the severity of the situation and once again returned to restore order. Moesia was reorganized into 2 provinces, which allowed more legions under separate commanders. In 88, another army was mustered to once again advance into Dacia and restore Roman pride, this time led by Tetius Julianus, who marched along the same path as Fuscus had done 2 years earlier. And once again they met the Dacians at Tappei. This time, however, the Romans were successful and the Dacians were forced to retreat. But before a complete victory could be accomplished, the armies of Upper Germania revolted. It's unknown why, but it forced the Romans to sue for peace with the Dacians, accepting an embarrassing peace treaty with Decebalus. The Romans had to pay Decebalus a large amount of money and sent him artisans to help him with various building projects. Domitian started to prepare a campaign against the rebellious legions together with Trajan. But before they could get to Upper Germania, the governor of the neighboring province of Lower Germania moved in to put down the revolt. Domitian once again moved back to the Danube frontier to counter the Suebi, Macromani and Quadi tribes that were raiding Roman territory. It's theorized that maybe these tribes had a pact with Decebalus to disrupt the Roman provinces. However, by the end of the year 89, an agreement was eventually reached, and for a time the frontier was quiet. But this was just a cessation in hostility. The tribes hadn't been brought to heel. 3 years later, these same tribes were once again raiding Roman territory, and now they were joined by the Sarmatians. Dacia was nominally a Roman client state and let the Roman troops pass through Dacian lands to attack the Sarmatian heartland. Very little is known about this campaign, but another cessation in hostilities was established, and Domitian returned to Rome to receive an ovation, which is a lot less prestigious than a triumph, which seems to suggest that Domitian was dissatisfied with the situation on the Danube frontier. Domitian has gotten a bad rap in all of our sources, even our Christian sources. They claim that he instituted a great prosecution of them. However, Domitian just maintained a policy of taxing those who refused the Roman pantheon. He did not single out any specific religion or beliefs. This tax was designed to punish the Jewish population in Judea for the revolt in 66, and the Christians were just seen as a sect of Judaism. While Domitian has been described by many as having a streak of cruelty, there is little evidence to suggest that his cruelty was applied specifically or any more so to the Christians. The primary opposition against Domitian was based mainly in the aristocracy in Rome. Domitian held one of the 2 consulships in all but 4 of the 16 years he reigned. However, he did understand the need to placate the Senate by granting them many of the remaining consulships, but disregarded the Senate as a governing body. While he elevated the equestrian order, prominent members of that order were appointed to various prestigious roles in the empire, such as governors and the Praetorian prefect. Towards the end of Domitian's reign, he reinstituted the treason trials that Titus had cancelled, and as many as 11 ex-consuls were put to death, and many senators were exiled during this period. And it seems that Domitian grew increasingly more paranoid, and for reasons unknown he executed one of his household secretaries, which seems to have initiated the idea of a plot to have him assassinated. On September 19, 96 AD, Domitian was stabbed to death by one of his freedmen. No one else in Domitian's household was put to death, and the Praetorian Guard did not retaliate against the murderers, at least initially. Upon hearing the news of Domitian's death, an elderly man in his 60s was proclaimed Emperor of Rome, Marcus Coccius Nerva. He would come to be known as the first emperor of the 5 good emperors, and that his reign traditionally has been seen as the start of a new golden age in the empire. Hey guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about Domitian? Do you think he was actually a tyrant as he is described by our ancient sources, or do you think that he was actually quite a good emperor? Let me know in the comment section below and I will engage with you there. And since you've watched this whole video, I'd like to ask a small favor of you, and that is to go check out a channel called Eastern Roman History. He makes videos on, well, Eastern Roman history, it's sort of in the title. He covers various battles, like the Battle of Manzikert, the Siege of Constantinople, and various Byzantine and late Roman emperors. And if that's a topic that interests you, go check his channel out, I can highly recommend it. You can find the link to his channel in the description of this video. And as usual, you can also find suggested reading and sources to this video. And like this video and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss our next video on Emperor Nerva. See you then!